is at work. He's in control. They bear the imprimatur of Satan. They bear on their faces the image of their father. And Jesus said it, John 8:44, you are of your father the devil. It was obvious. They were visibly the devil's children because they were manifest that way. They bore the mark of satanic control. Man is a slave to Satan. He is not free. He is totally controlled. Satan works in him to accomplish his own will. Only, Jesus said, if the Son makes you free, are you free? So the results of sin overpowers and brings into the control of Satan. Thirdly, sin makes a person an object of God's wrath. It is sin that causes us to be condemned and damned. It is sin that sends men to hell. We are exposed, Ephesians 2:3 says, to the wrath of God. And the psalmist said in Psalm 90:11, who knows the power of God's wrath? That's why we don't want to mock. That's why Proverbs 14:9, I think it is, says only fools mock sin. Because when you mock sin, you mock the wrath of God. God's wrath is not some momentary whimsical passion. It is a holy hatred. It is an act of His pure and holy will against that which is evil and unacceptable, and He will destroy it. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of an angry God, of a mighty God, of a judging, wrathful, vengeful God. And so sin makes men the heirs of God's wrath. And while they think they're feasting like Damocles' banquet, there's a sword hanging over their head held by a thread, and someday the thread will snap and judgment will fall. And then another thought about the results of sin that's very important. Sin subjects a person to all the miseries of life. Sin brings the worst of all there is on the individual. Job said in chapter 5, verse 7, man is born unto trouble, and trouble becomes his name. Trouble is everywhere. Paul says the sin of Adam has subjected the creature to vanity, subjected the creature to emptiness, to uselessness. There's something missing. There's an unsatisfaction, so it's trouble and it's nothingness. You live a life of sin and you get trouble and nothing else. Emptiness. Solomon said, vanity of vanities, emptiness of emptiness, all is nothing, all is nothing. What a conundrum, what a paradox. A man enters the world with a cry and leaves with a groan, and nothing in between. Only emptiness. Sin has torn man down from the place of honor. He has lost his dignity. He is robbed of peace. He knows no lasting joy, no hope, no meaning, no values. There is no peace, says my God, to the wicked. The wicked, rather, are like the troubled sea when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. And the wicked, says Proverbs 28:1, flee when nobody pursues. They are hounded with the nothingness and the meaninglessness and the guilt and the absence of peace in their lives. Judas, so terrified, Judas, so wrought with guilt and horror, hanged himself to quiet his screaming conscience. And even hell proves no rest. Listen, sin brings the worst things in life. It exposes men to all the ultimate misery. The final result of sin is that it damns people to hell. In Revelation chapter 20, it says, in the end, at the great white throne judgment, the Lord will gather all the unbelieving and cast them into the lake of fire that burns forever. Jesus taught the doctrine of hell. He was the one who framed it and articulated it in the Gospels. The apostles picked it up, and it's repeated throughout the New Testament. And we need to know this, dear friends. 50 million people will die this year. 136,986 die every day. And hell awaits the vast majority of people. Spurgeon said, man is hanging over the mouth of hell by a solitary plank, and the plank is rotten. And that is the fatality of sin ultimately. What a horrible thing it is. Now, why all of this? Because this, dear friends, is the ugliness of Christmas that brings us to the point of its beauty. You see, the beauty of Christmas is that Christ came into the world to what? Save sinners. Now, isn't that the beauty of Christmas? And who can understand the beauty of Christmas without the ugliness? It isn't the cards and the trees and the lights and the presents and the fantasies and the snow scenes and the warm fires. The beauty of Christmas is that Christ came to cure the ugliness of the world. And Ezekiel Hopkins many years ago said, it is not man's cannots, but his will nots. It is not impotency, but obstinacy that destroys him. Men will not, obstinately will not come to the Christ who came to save. God determined to send his Son into the world, the brightness of his glory, the express image of his person, partaker of the divine perfection, to die for us. That's Christmas. That's the meaning of Christmas. And no matter what you may think and what sentiments you may have and what warm feelings you might have about Christmas, unless you understand the ugliness of your own sin and embrace Jesus Christ, who alone by his death and resurrection can save you from that sin, you don't have any connection with Christmas. Joseph Hart wrote, "Come ye sinners, poor and needy, weak and wounded, sick and sore. Jesus ready stands to save you, full of pity, love, and power. He is able, he is able. He is willing, doubt no more. He is able, he is able. He is willing, doubt no more. Come ye weary, heavy laden, bruised and mangled by the fall. If you tarry till you're better, you will never come at all. Not the righteous, not the righteous. Sinners Jesus came to call. Not the righteous, not the righteous. Sinners Jesus came to call."
You're listening to John Macarthur with a message titled The Ugliness of Christmas. Along with being the featured Bible teacher on Grace to You, John also serves as pastor of Grace Community Church and president of the Master's College and Seminary. Today's lesson comes from a collection of memorable Christmas messages preached during his 45 years of pulpit ministry. The series is titled The Best of Christmas. John, at the end of the lesson, you talked about a sobering topic, namely hell. I know a lot of folks, including Christians, wonder why a loving God would punish people for eternity. So with that in mind, let me ask John, how do you encourage someone that's wrestling with a question about hell?
Well, that's always the most difficult reality for folks to deal with. It certainly is for me, as any other believer or non-believer, because